Now in this film I want to move on to a new way I'm working here, not so much the textural work which you've seen before, but taking that textural work further. And there's this new medium I've come across, this wonderful resin, twin mix, that you can add across your textural work, or in fact across any artwork, even tabletops or woodwork and so on. It's a wonderful medium. We've discovered this local artist to me just moved into the area, very kindly, Peter, has very kindly shown me this medium and how to use it and helped me do 3 of my pieces so far, which I'll show you in just a moment. I'm going to take this a lot further with the textural work I'm going to do. I'm going to now develop a lot more with this work because it suits that work so much. It's very professional in its finish, it's very attractive, it's easy to clean. You could even use it for the back of something like a kitchen backing or so on. If you want to do a long artwork somewhere like that where you have to keep it clean and can be wiped and so on. Superb surface, these resins. It's a plastic coating, it's literally a liquid resin that you pour on and can roll on, giving a plastic surface over it that's very flexible as well. This is on canvas, but I'm going to start working on MDF on the next one. So in this film we're going to show the series of, again, where I'm taking these new textural ones with all the sorts of materials that I use, very exciting, with the natural materials, the rices, the grains, the seeds, and then we'll go on to using foam and so on, and really enjoy making moods and surfaces and atmospheres with not only the textures but the colours. And you know as an impressionist that I tend to work about light, atmosphere and mood. Now I want to work very much about the materials and how we can get the ambience, the feeling of emotion and our moods in these pictures with both colour schemes and the textures, and linking them as well with the ideas, the hints of landscapes or trees or skies and so on. So quite an exciting series to come, having just been playing with all the figures in the Secret series. Now we're going back to these more atmospheric works. So let's go and look at the other 2 that I've just done with the resin as well and see how they work. But you know, you can see the lovely surface we get here. So if we look a bit more closely at this previous piece that I've done using bits of cut card and seeds, paste and so on, lots of different ways of working that we will discuss with you as we go along. But it gives a lovely surface. Now let's go and take a look at the other 2. Well, here we are in the gallery again then, outside, at least for a while until I sell this place and move on, which hopefully won't be too long. We've got new adventures to have. You can see there's quite a variety of work here, isn't there? As I come round, we'll come round to these ones that have just been resined here. You can see even from here the effect on them. Let's take a closer look at them now. Right, I'll just take these 2 works outside now so you can see them outside. Then we'll move on to the next picture I'm going to do in this series. I'll show it to you here. You can possibly see these now with this wonderful gloss effect happening on them. The light isn't really showing that very well in this situation, but they've got a beautiful rich depth to them now. You can see this business that I mean about using the moods and the atmospheres and 2 totally different colour schemes, different series of colours as I'm going to do in the future series, with, you know, the power of green, the power of blue, the power of the gold and so on. And we'll work these atmospheres through, linking them with the textures. I've just shown you this picture, and I've looked at it again, and we're going to do a series, and I'll show you some more pictures now here of different ones that I've got ideas to do. So this is the future from this large one I've got in front of me. This is a large piece of board that I've just chalked out at the moment. I've already done a test on the surface to make sure that the stuff will stick to it and adhere to it. We'll look at some of the materials too. Anyway, here we are. Here's a few more of the pictures I'm going to do after this first one. Right, let's take a look now at some of the materials we're going to use. Now see, I've got some polystyrene which I can break up and make into little balls and nodules and rocks and so on. We've got lettering, we've got rice, we've got split peas, chickpeas, wool is very important for us, tissue paper, grain, you name it, whatever we want to do, we're going to have these different textures to be able to use and mix with the PVA glue, which will then glue it onto the surface and give us a nice plastic finish. We can also mix filler, ordinary household filler, with water and PVA glue, and spatula that on to give us raised surfaces, more smooth and raised surfaces. And that can be mixed with these as well. So all of these mediums can be intermixed and used and built up as we want to build them up to give these textural surfaces, as you're going to see me do. So it'll be great fun again. And then we'll add the colours on in sequence afterwards, usually doing a primer first and then working them over the top. Possibly using acrylics first and then working the oils up over that as well. Maybe a little gold leaf here and there. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is make some filler and use PVA glue with that filler to build up with our painting knives here. The tools we're going to use with that are these. You can see I've even got a fork in there, which is useful for making textures and grasses and weed and so on. Probably one of my favourite knives that I like to use. This is one of my favourite knives. It's got a lovely shape to it, and I can do various angles, flats and smaller details as well, so I'll be using that most of all probably. It's difficult to say exactly how much our mix should be, but we don't need an awful lot of glue. I'm going to make up a fair amount this time of filler, so I'm going to put that in first. Quite a bit of it, because I really want to build this up. Should have about half an hour before this sets too much, so I'm using about a quarter of a box there, quite a lot, and then a nice big dollop of PVA glue into that, which will make it more which will make it more flexible and help it to stick more. Add water gradually to that. Don't put too much water in too quickly. The glue will have already made it a little bit softer. We want a mixture that's sticky enough to go on, but still stiff enough to be mouldable. You can see how the glue into that has already given it quite a liquid, plasticky texture anyway. Make sure you mix it all up, get all the powder mixed up. You don't want dry bits in it yet. Now you can mix things with this, of course. We can actually mix grain and stuff with this if we want to. I'm going to use it straight as it is, so that's nice and sticky. It should give us a good coat. And I want to basically cover all of my surface with this, whether it's textured or whether it's raised and moulded or not, to give a key for the texturing I'm going to put on. There we are, that's ready to go. Right, I'm ready to go then. Let's start building it up. Whack it on. And we've got horizon line here, which is where the loch ends, and I want to be able to build up these hills here and come down lower to the horizon line. Quite heavy when it's done, especially with the plastic coat on as well, but I think you'll find very, very effective later. I can raise that texturing by just pulling up my knife a bit there, look. Gives some raised texture, so I'm just letting the knife stick to it here and pulling it upwards as I go along. Great fun to do, so I'm always sharing my new ideas and techniques with you so that you can try them in your own way. And the mountain itself is another big mountain that comes up here. Let's just do the smoother texturing behind here first. Hopefully already you can start to see how we're getting surface and textures going. Lovely smooth bit there, comes in with the mist, and then the mountain comes up higher again. Right, we'll go on to high speed with the camera now, and you'll just see me finish this off, because there's no point in me dragging you through all of this technique. You can see how it works now, so you don't need to see much more of that. Finishing off, and as you see I've got a lot of texture happening here. We've got smoother areas reflecting the water where I'm coming across and downwards. like this. Where there are some textural areas too, I've still stippled, bringing in the palette knife to give a slightly sticky texture to it. With these slightly smoother areas here and there, like here. Now all of this is going to be textured. I'm going to add a lot more texturing to this. Next I'm coming in with, and this is dry enough, when it's not, I can still stick it in when it's wet, and start coming in with all my seeds and rice and grains and things like that into here. So let's just at the moment get all of this textured up by lifting like this before I put the other textures on top, swirling in around here. We've already got an interesting piece just with that alone. I mean, I know that there's now being sold boards with textures on them, boards that you can carve into, but why bother? I mean, you know, this is so inexpensive this way, just using ordinary MDF, no priming at all, and working straight onto it with these materials. We can build up as we want, and I can cut into it and I can mould it. Let's take a fork. With the fork we'll just start to add this feeling of these bits of weed that are growing here. In perspective, I want this perspective to come down and through and out here. Lovely, lovely marks we can make. Get my chair out of the way. I can drag this down through to the effect of the weeds swirling here. I'm going to use more wool dragged through PVA glue and water to add on to this. To really get these effects of the weed here. It's great fun, it's so loose and free to do, and I'd be doing this with a brush anyway. So I'll be building up these textures in the same sort of way. So it's rather nice to just be able to come in now and do it with a fork and from the knife and so on. Just dragging it through and getting the effects of this seaweed on the sea loch here up at Loch Teacuis in Scotland. Absolutely beautiful place. I've seen my films on YouTube where I painted up there a few years ago. Right, that's about it for that for the moment. We can let that start to dry and I can start to mix up my other materials that are going to go onto here. Well, this is now drying off really well. Behind me we've got the textures ready to go. So I'm going to start mixing up these textures to go into this for all the little pebbles and stones and areas of weed and so on here. I'm going to start with the smallest texture. So I'll start with some rice. Plenty of it, I can use it around the place, there's no worry. And into that I'll pour a bit of PVA glue. A fair amount of the glue because I do want it to set really well. And I'm going to add just a little bit of water with that. You can always add more glue if you feel it needs it, which I think it will. It's quite nice, like you see the water's just thinned it just a little bit. And it's now nice and gungy, but the glue isn't so thick that it's stopping the texture from showing. And that's what we want. Just a nice texturing which will level out as the glue settles down. Right, now I've got to decide where we want this fine stuff. Just take it with the hands and place it where we actually want it. Flattening it out, letting the glue settle it down. It's going right on back into here. Some lovely textures amongst this, coming into the rocks and around and down here. Comes all the way out around here. Right out. Down there, down here, through, into the pebbles here. Might even make some more, but we can always make more, that's the point, it's no big deal. It's easy enough to do, isn't it? Make sure that it settles onto here, make sure the glue does glue it on. We can always pour a bit more glue on later, but yeah, just to get enough and even now. One bit sticking around here. Right up into here. These textures, I'm going to put more texture of weeds and so on into here later, not to worry. Right up through, see how we're building it on here. Wherever I'm going to need it, these little bits coming right down to the bottom. Make sure you tap it on because we do want that glue to, it's very important that that glue does actually stick to here. And although the glue will settle down, come through it a bit. That's why I put some water in. You don't want bits just dribbling off later. So we're building up all of this texture wherever we need it right through. Lovely textures, lovely fun. Quite intuitive, it's very sculptural. So here in some ways we're able to do the best of both worlds. We're able to do the sculptural world and the two-dimensional painting world. And we're going to use a mixture now of split peas and some slightly larger pulses. Get some of the larger stones going. That's where we need those now. Not doing anything more to the sky, but I do want to drop in odd larger pebbles and stones right up through here. You can see how much watery glue I've got going. So as you see, we can build up larger rocks and areas of little islandy things here by using a few more bits of pebble and stones. Wherever they're going to be. Right down to here, right down to the edges, like I say, do get to the edges. Not so easy for framing these, but a decent frame does go over them alright. And of course these pebbles of this size, once they get further back, will appear to be larger rocks in the distance anyway, so there's no problem in dropping a few in right back here amongst it. They make quite a nice colour as they are, don't they, in a way? But what I'm going to do now before I do the wool is just break up a bit of polystyrene into slightly larger and more varied lumps, because I want a few larger rocks around the place here and there. So I'm going to just break these down to a mixture of sizes and pieces, so I can just put on some slightly larger stones that the weed can come over. Now in this case, as the pieces are slightly larger, I've not mixed quite so much water, just really more glue, and I want to see where we might have some slightly larger stones built up. And hopefully, as I say, the glue will sink down past these and help to glue them on. What I want next is a whole load of texturing like the seaweed here. So I want very short pieces of wool. I'm just going to slice off lots and lots of little pieces of this into the bowl and then add water and PVA glue to that, and I can just lay them across here in different directions like seaweed. Right, here's our wool then, chopped up and mixed with the water and PVA glue, and hopefully all I've got to do now is start to lay this across my, put it over there, across my stones and pull it out a bit to get this feeling of all this weed coming down and through. Now I've already used the fork, so we already have a fair bit of texturing anyway. Just use whatever you like. I mean, whatever textures you have, whatever you can find, wood shaving, sand, whatever texture you want. The world's your oyster. It's up to you. You can mix it with this PVA glue, and it's so cheap and it's so simple. So, lots more made. I can start to spread it out now to other areas. Let's see how we do now with the paintwork. I think so. We'll let that dry off. That should be enough for my texture, I think. Let's take a look at it more closely with the camera. Right, well here's our texturing. We'll get right in above it, and you can begin to see how it really does work. If we go in closer to that in a moment, work our way across, and just zoom down, and I'll show you how that wool is working. All of these textures are working. We're going to paint all of this in a nice black or deep blue so that we get the whole thing as one tone. Then we can start to build up the background colours and overlay them one by one in acrylics, eventually going to the oils at the end. We're going to go on now this morning. The texture's dried, it's had overnight, it's had about 20 hours. And I'm going to make a mixture of Prussian blue, purple and black, probably a little bit of ultramarine into it, a fair amount of water in it. I've already shaken this one well up to get some existing paint going. Put purple into that, ultramarine, and now finally good amount of black to really take it down. And that should give us... Right, let's get straight into getting some of this dark colour on then. And now you see everything is nice and solid. I'm going to totally cover this texture in. And I've got to come back and put light into some places to reverse it, so that I've got the surface texture will be light against dark and some of it will be dark against light, so we've just got to reverse it in places. Really work the colour into the depth of the texturing, because you don't want little white specks being left. They look awful, like snow on the surface. Well, the actual textural work on this is now completed, and I'm going to now start working into the painting. And in the painting I've got to work up, obviously, my lights and my darks and different colour hues, but in some places I'm going to have dark on the surface, so I'm going to have to make it light down below and come back and put the darks on again onto the top textures. In some places I'm going to have it dark below and light on top, so I just have to bring the light over the top, and that's where, in which case I can leave it as it is now. But while I'm doing this, and waiting for some parts to dry, I've got a whole series to do. I want 4 more to do on this particular picture here, which is this woodland one. And I want to do that as 4 seasons on 4 bits of board. So I'm going to start the texturing and that at the same time, have a little conveyor belt of these going as I explore and experiment and have fun. So we'll make a start on this painting, and at the same time I'm going to bring in other boards and start the textural work on that as well.